What's the point of making something when you could just go and buy that thing, especially in today's day and age? You could order it on Amazon and have it today. These projects typically cost much more to make than they would to buy. And if you think of things only in terms of cost, then it would make more sense to buy that thing. But I think there are a host of other considerations that we tend to not take into account, such as the fact that every time you make something and you go through that sometimes agonizing process of overcoming challenges, you're actually a better craftsman and a more well-rounded human, I would argue, than you would otherwise be. It's really hard to describe the satisfaction that you experience when we're on the other side of those challenges and we've solved all the problems that we encountered, and now we're experiencing the fruit of our labors. And if you make something, especially tools and things in the shop, for me, that's probably one of the most rewarding things to do. The things that you build, that you use throughout your life, they provide a certain satisfaction that is really hard to describe. You can't quantify it in terms of dollars and cents. Yes, we spend more money, especially when you consider that time is money, to come up with these solutions to whatever problem we're experiencing. But there have actually been many times that I've gone out to my shop. I didn't intend to actually make anything that day. I just went out to the shop to look at something that I built or that I'm in the process of building. And you just stand there and dream. My wife has caught me several times and she kind of makes fun of me for it, but it's a real thing. This is a real concept that if you've built something, then you understand. And if you haven't built something, I encourage you to do so, because this is a feeling that is unique to people that create things, which we should all do, I think. We were meant to create. We were made to create by God himself. We call God the creator, but he gave us those same properties. It's one of the things that it's meant by having been created in the image of God. It means other things too, but it means that we are able to create. And I think we should definitely encourage that part of ourselves.
I've heard people lament often the fact that they never seem to make it out of the beginning stages of whatever it is they're doing, whether it's music or woodworking or metalworking or photography or whatever. And they think that it's just an ability that's given to them or not. And that they really don't have much to do with that. It's just, some people are talented and some are not. I hear the word talented bandied around when they're admiring somebody who can do something really well. They're like, man, that guy's really talented. And I always kind of balked at the use of that word because, certain people are given certain gifts, other people are given other gifts. But I think what's undervalued, what's not given the proper emphasis, is that a necessary part of learning a skill is the frustrations that occur that you have to overcome. You have to get through those hard times. And most people give up before they have mastered whatever it is they were struggling with. And it's because most people, I find, aren't willing to go through those struggles that they never really make it out of the beginning stages of whatever it is we're talking about here. I'm using French curves to kind of lay out the template. And I remember a long time ago, I was looking at how a guy built a chair, and the proportions of that chair were beautiful. And I remember reading an article about how he got those proportions so correct. What he did was he built a mock-up entirely out of cardboard. And I remember thinking, boy, that's a lot of work. But I've since realized that is what it takes. That's just what's required. You've got to take the extra steps to get those proportions correct. Don't wing it. I've wung it enough and failed. And I still succumb to that sometimes. I still try to wing it and hope that it's somehow going to work out. And, that's not exactly the best strategy, it turns out. In the end, you actually waste more time than you would have if you just did it right the first time. Shocking concept, I know. But I mention it because I'm not the only one I know who still seems convinced that maybe this time it'll work if I just wing it. And now I'm just going to cut these tacks out very carefully. You won't even see the cut mark because it's going to be welded. So And these are the cross pieces. I'm cutting 3, 2 of the same size and 1 slightly smaller for the top. And I'm going to drill holes in them to accommodate the cord of the lamp. And I really had to be careful, trying to be careful here to make sure that these are exactly 90 degrees. Otherwise, the fit up is not going to be good. I'm countersinking these holes because it looks nice. I started grinding that without the use of the vice grip, and the belt grinder flung the piece across the shop. Here I'm using a beveling tool, an air-powered beveling tool. It's basically a little router for metal. And because this piece is too small to do that with, I'm just using a burr grinder. And I'm about to cut the base piece that the lamp actually attaches to. I had a bit of a drill press mishap here in this next shot where the drill bit seemed to be, it just suddenly went dull. It just would not drill no matter how hard I tried. And I tried, you can see the table moving from all the force I was applying to this thing. I bit the bullet as much as I hated to interrupt my time that I had in the shop. And I went down to the hardware store and I bought a new 13/64 drill bit. And I got it chucked up, and same thing. I was like, what? What are the odds of that? A dull bit. You bought a dull bit. Well, guess what? It wasn't the drill bit. Turns out it was me, as usual. I'd forgotten that on a previous project I'd set the depth stop, and here I was trying to overcome the depth stop. I'm surprised I didn't break the thing. In my defense, it's a relatively new drill press. Not really, I've had it for over a year now, but it's what I'm going with. It's all I have. What am I going to do, blame myself? I love the fact that I can just open a drawer, and right there in front of me is my tap and die set. I can just grab whatever I need. I don't have to reach up onto a shelf, open the thing, only to find that all the taps and dies are in some kind of town meeting, commingling. And this is new for me since I built this welding table a few videos back. Here I'm using a center punch that's exactly the size of the hole, so I can make sure that I did one of these one time and the holes didn't quite line up, and that was a pain. So now this is what I do. I drill one hole and I tap it. I put the lamp on there and then I mark out all the holes. It's just safer that way. I considered doing this without any wood accents, but I really like the way that the wood warms up the metal. The combination of the two, the warmth and the softness of the wood, and then the cold, hard, immovable nature of the steel, I think is a great contrast. The devil's in the details here. I spend some time shaping the edges. I don't want there to be a stark transition, depth transition here between where the wood leaves off and the metal begins. So I'm kind of rounding over the edges here with a file and then sandpaper. I'm tacking the uprights to the base plate, and I'm not adding any filler material. The way I do this is I basically double the amperage that I would normally use, so this is about 200 amps. I thought I'd include some arc shots. Who doesn't like arc shots? So you get a kind of better idea of what's going on here. Otherwise, it just looks like a blinding light. It's like, oh, cool. I can see your welding there. Wish I could see what you were doing there. Thanks for the seizure. I like to put in a root and then a cover pass. I do the root with the little dab method and a straight line, and then I do the cover pass with a weave. I dab on the top to ensure that I don't get any undercut. I chose this light company because I've had such success with them in the past. They produce a great product, obviously, but their customer service is ridiculous in a good way. It's like you got a question about their product, and so you call them, and a human answers on like ring 1 or 2, and it's almost jarring. It's like, oh, hi there. You're not a computer, are you? It's like, well, now I sound like an idiot. I wasn't ready for human interaction. How about this? I'll call you back in a minute. We'll pretend this never happened. So I ordered the light, and get this, the company called me while I was at work and asked me, was I trying to order a 110 version? And they told me that they don't make the 110 version anymore because of lack of demand, but they were going to make up one special for me and send it to me free of charge, which is just crazy talk. In this day and age, I've never heard of this kind of thing. Great job, Stack Lights. You've got a loyal evangelist in me. I do want to mention that I made a slight change in the bolts that I'm using here. Originally, I used grade 5 silver bolts, but I decided to change to grade 8 bolts, essentially due to a comment by V8 Skulls, a guy named Darren, that he's commented several times on my videos, and the more I thought about it, the more I thought he was right. That gold color really is a nice contrast, and I think he was correct. So good on you there, Darren. Thanks for taking the time to make the comment.
I want to thank you for watching the video. As always, I enjoy reading your comments, especially the ones where you describe, things that you've made, things that you've been frustrated with but overcame in the process of building. I enjoy those comments. I try to respond to all of them. As always, I really appreciate you watching the video. And now it's time for you to go and make something awesome.